Okay guys, welcome back to another episode of Rotten Reviews. On this episode I take a look at the 2010 film Legion. It has Paul Bettany, Lucas Black, Tyrese Gibson, Charles Dutton, and Dennis Quaid actually makes another forgettable appearance playing a strange character himself. This is a 19% on the tomato meter and a 31% on the audience score, with a big 312,000 plus audience reviews. And it is certainly rotten. I'll agree with those more than 300,000 people that this film deserves to be rotten. Its biggest crime is just that it's boring. And I remember seeing this when it was fresh out on DVD in 2010, and I remembered it as being boring, and I almost didn't make it through this the first time I tried to watch it back then. Now, I watched this in the last day on Netflix. It is still on Netflix as of November and December of 2019. It's still as rotten as ever, and right away I realized why I remembered it being very boring. That's the biggest crime here. We have something that is set almost entirely in a diner, an old rundown diner in the middle of the California desert. It's done very cheaply. Once you show up at this diner from the audience point of view, you're at this diner. You don't ever get to leave this diner, just like the main characters don't get to leave this diner. There's a lack of budget here, not just in the location, how you're confined to this desert diner, but also you can tell all the vehicles, of which there are many used in this film, they are all old junker vehicles that belong perhaps in a desert junkyard, not far from where this diner probably was in the desert. Southern California desert junkyard cars, just made mobile enough to be convincing in the movie, but right away you can understand just visually that this movie is very low budget. And it's not packaged to be a low budget movie. It's packaged as some kind of it's going to be a big budget apocalyptic action psychological thriller, and yet it's just basically a dud. It's boring. It's got a hurry up and wait aspect to the action. You have some very short scenes of gunplay, very boring gunplay, killing zombies in a way. Not quite zombies, but possessed bodies, possessed by demons, no doubt. There's some gunplay action, and then long stretches of just talking between characters that you care very little about, and a very unclimactic ending. No real climax to the little action in the story there is. It's a very boring and nonsensical ending on top of it. Right off the bat, I'm going to say this movie makes no sense because in its opening scene, the Archangel Michael appears on Earth, or zooms down, lands on Earth. He cuts his wings off, and he proceeds in somewhere in downtown or the industrial portion of Los Angeles. He proceeds to break into the back of a toy factory, and in this toy factory is some gigantic weapons cache of all these military assault weapons, M4s, rocket launchers, pistols, everything you can imagine inside this rundown toy factory warehouse building in LA. There's no explanation of how this comes to be, but in any case, Archangel Michael, without his wings, he arms himself up with a bunch of military weapons, rifles, lots of ammunition. He's got them packed into duffel bags. He kills a couple of cops, then takes their car and drives out to this diner in the desert, where it becomes just a long, drawn-out apocalyptic diner drama, and it's very boring. It never stops being boring. Even the action is very cheap, and at one point in the action they actually give up on zombie or demon makeup and effects, and they just have large groups of people attack the diner, and you can tell that they're just they look like extras taken out of some kind of punk rock band or rave that were just brought on as extras. They don't even have makeup or anything. They just gave up on the zombie and the demon effects. It's very stupid. The further this goes on, the more you realize it's low budget. Now, there is some CGI. There's a big confrontation between the Archangel Gabriel, who comes down to do battle with Michael, and there's a lot of CGI in that, an angel fighting an angel without wings. but they blew it all there, and the rest of the movie just is completely low budget. Let's get to the audience reviews. We have one from 3 days ago, 3 stars. Watched this on Netflix at 3 a.m. and honestly got what I expected. It's a thriller with some biblical elements, the apocalypse, etc. It honestly had a few really good action scenes, but my problem with the movie is that after each action scene, there are 10 to 20 minutes of unnecessary dialogue, which makes this movie as long as it is. But the good part is that the story was kind of interesting, and the monsters in it looked so bad that it was good. Overall, not a bad watch. My personal star rating on this is going to be barely 1 star. I say I want to give it half a star, but just because there was some effort put into some of the CGI, I'll give it 1 star. You know, the production value wasn't so cheap that it deserved half a star. I'm going to give it 1 star, but I'm reluctantly giving it 1 star. It's still completely rotten. As far as Netflix, this is not the worst thing on Netflix. I'm not sure who owns this or why it's still on Netflix today, but it is, and it features quite prominently on the lineup when you log into Netflix. If you watch anything with action or sci-fi or anything, this seems to keep popping up, forcing you to watch it. I only reluctantly did so to refresh myself on how bad it was before this rotten review. But you're going to see this on Netflix. It's almost making itself unavoidable, or Netflix is trying to make this unavoidable for some purpose. It's very disappointing. Yeah, like this reviewer says, there's just some cheap, quick action, and then just long, drawn-out scenes of people talking, characters talking to each other, relating things from their backgrounds. And none of it really advances the story. It's just supposed to make you waste time, I guess, to fill time, to get closer to that 1 hour and 40-minute runtime, because this thing really drags. And at points I felt the almost irresistible urge to hit the fast forward button, but I didn't, just in case I missed something to comment on. But I really wanted to either shut it off or fast forward to the end. It's that boring, and it feels so long. It's only 1 hour and 40 minutes, but it feels like it's over 2 hours long. It's how slow the pace is. 3.5 stars from November of 2019. I didn't watch this for a long time because of negative reviews, but I got curious and glad I did. Pretty cool movie with an entertaining way the plot carries out. But if you were expecting a Bible-based Christian movie about the apocalypse, like the stale, predictable Left Behind, this isn't for you. It takes a different perspective. I wanted to watch an apocalyptic horror movie, and that's what I got. Oh, it's barely an apocalypse. They put it out in this remote diner just so that, you know, they could just cut out the bad TV, and they could cut out the radio, and then the phone signal is lost, and apparently that's enough to convince everybody at the diner that the apocalypse is there. That, and the fact that there are some demons that show up initially, like a handful, that it would be obvious to anybody involved in that they're dealing with something supernatural. But that's not that great. It's just they blew all their budget on just like 3 or 4 demon character type things. And then the rest of it is just people dressed up as punk rock bikers and whatnot. They're just clearly extras brought in to assault the diner. And the assault of the diner is very unconvincing and boring. And basically, an angel and sidekicks at the diner just need to unload automatic weapons into punk rock bikers that are attacking them on the ground, and it's really stupid. There's nothing exciting, tension-filled, or you know, there's nothing building up to some grand climax in this, and you know it's not going to. It's just very boring, and it almost comes across as, you know, a movie that if it were written as a comedy it would have worked, but no. There's not even 1 or 2 funny lines in this. It's 100% played seriously. The soundtrack is played 100% seriously. And the soundtrack would have you believe this is some epic horror, thriller, biblical, apocalyptic thing. The music certainly takes everything completely serious, and yet nothing in this is notable at all. You get more enjoyment by watching, you know, some old low-budget Hellraiser sequel. You get more out of that than you do on this thing, and it's a shame because all the actors are pretty well known. Paul Bettany, well, we know he's been in a lot of action and superhero films, and he does just fine. Charles Dutton and Dennis Quaid are forgettable and just kind of put in there. They don't do anything special. Now, the Tyrese Gibson, nothing special. It's like he's just in between Fast and Furious movies at that point, so he had nothing else to do. The one that's kind of always shows up in bad movies for me is this Lucas Black. He was also in Fast and Furious 3, the Tokyo Drift. He returned in, I think, the 7th Fast and Furious to make a small bit part in that. But this Lucas Black, he's just always plays just a dumb hick, and that's all he's good at, and it's just boring, and he just has one facial expression, and I'm not even sure why they picked him for this film. Maybe Tyrese Gibson, he came along in the package deal. They were both between Fast and Furious movies. I don't know the story, but nobody contributes a damn thing to this movie. Their performances are boring, dull, nothing whatsoever redeemable to be found here. Let's continue on. 1.5 stars. The movie that Netflix really wants me to think is much more popular than it really is. Legion has a solid premise, some good scenes, and decent performances out of the cast, but the slow pacing, disappointing decision to make it a single location thriller rather than an epic adventure movie, incoherent comic book editing during action scenes, and generally poor execution of its premise lead to an action horror movie that comes off as really silly. Spider Granny does whatever. Yeah, there's a scene where a grandma character comes in, and it's pretty quickly revealed that she's possessed by some evil spirit or a demon, and she jumps onto the ceiling like Spider-Man and crawls around, and that's like probably just designed to be something featured in the trailer. And I'm sorry, you saw that in the trailer, and there was very little of that and no point to it in the movie, and they just shot her with a shotgun and killed her. And there was a lot of stuff in the movie that could have been used, but really it just looked like it was put in there to, have something to put together into a trailer. And I'm sure the trailer deceived a lot of people and got people to pay for this. And it wouldn't shock me at all if this movie made a profit. A lot of really bad horror type movies do. And another thing that sticks out to me is really bad is it was so cheap the way they tried to give you a scene of the Archangel Michael and the Archangel Gabriel in heaven, like a flashback scene of them arguing about what they were going to do, what God was going to do with humans. And they were standing in front of a green screen of the sky, and behind them there was just like what looked like a drainage culvert with plastic garbage bag sheeting blowing or hanging from the concrete walls, and that was supposed to be some place in heaven. It was completely stupid and cheap and ridiculous, and there was less budget there than what I could have done in my own garage at home if I had put a couple of hours into it. And yet the movie put all this serious orchestral apocalyptic serious religious music behind it and put the lighting in there to make it all serious. But the budget was lower in a lot of this than what you could do at home on your own property in your free time, and that's really it's really disgusting, like this mismarketing. And I'm sure all of the trailer to this thing convinced you that it wasn't this low budget thing, but man, it was so low budget. There was probably more money put into the soundtrack of this than anything else. The rest was really bad, even by B-movie standards. Let's continue. 2.5 stars. This movie looks like a video game because it is structured in waves of enemies of increasing difficulty, and this makes the plot almost secondary. The plot has a very nice and almost original basic idea, but then the execution is not the best, and this makes it full of holes from start to finish, so you can't really understand why the whole film unfolds. Yeah, a lot of this makes no sense. Even the basic premise. I already mentioned that Archangel Michael shows up at the toy factory warehouse place and finds this arsenal of military grade weapons that he steals. That makes no sense. But another thing that makes no sense is how everything in this film needs to converge on the diner in the middle of nowhere. For example, why didn't Archangel Michael just show up at the diner or near the diner, outside the diner? Why did he show up in Los Angeles and then have to drive all the way out to the diner? Why did waves of enemies all have to show up presumably in Los Angeles and then also make their way to the diner? Why did plagues of flies flying through the air, which were CGI, why did they have to somehow come from tens of miles away over the mountains and hills to eventually make it to the diner? Why didn't everybody, demons, angels, and etc., all just show up at the diner in the first place if that's what they wanted to do? And, you know, giving away a spoiler, not that it matters to me, but the whole premise of this is that there's a woman that's pregnant at the diner. She works at the diner, and I guess she lives around the diner in a trailer somewhere. And she has like some kind of baby that, you know, outside of the movie, it's explained that this is like going to be a new Messiah, like a Jesus type baby that she has inside her, and that this is an immaculate conception. Now, that's not explained in the movie. That's outside of the movie, that different marketing materials will tell you this, and other people will. But yet in the movie, if you just go by what you watch in this movie, all you know is that this pregnant girl, everybody wants to either capture her baby or kill her baby, and it makes no sense. It's not explained in the movie at all. Now, Paul Bettany has a scene where his angel, Michael the Archangel, he explains kind of a dialogue scene where he's explaining to the characters what's going on. But he doesn't even explain hardly anything, just in a very simple fashion. And of course, all the characters just nod their heads and go along with it. And nobody asks him a single question in detail about, you know, trying to get him to explain anything beyond the very cursory thing that they have to defend themselves against waves of evil enemies that are coming. It's completely stupid. There's so many plot holes and ridiculous things about this. The whole premise makes no sense. It is shown that, you know, the Archangel Michael, he could have like kept his wings and I presume most of his powers before he went to the diner to fight evil. But no, he doesn't. He cuts his wings off, and then even later in the movie, when the Archangel Gabriel shows up, he comments and says, well, you know, if you hadn't cut your wings off, this battle might have been gone better for you. Well, yeah, exactly. What the hell is going on here? It's never explained why an archangel from heaven would need to arm himself with machine guns and fight in this conventional manner after he pretty much cripples himself deliberately. Not explained at all in the movie. And in fact, the movie almost has some dialogue that tries to poke fun of that, but it doesn't do a good job of poking fun at it. It just reminds you that nothing about this makes any sense. It's like a video game, waves of enemies that come and then long stretches of dialogue. And the enemies, again, they gave up trying to make them look like demons. They're just punk rock looking extras. And on top of that, at the end of the movie, it's not explained what the hell really is going on. First, waves of demons are trying to get into the diner, and they're not really in a hurry to kill the baby or the mother of the baby. They almost, it seems like maybe they want to abduct it or something. But then when the Archangel Gabriel shows up towards the end, all the demons just kind of stand there and like complete statues and ignore everybody and stop trying to go after the baby. And then it becomes about the two archangels fighting over whether the baby is going to be killed or something. It doesn't make any sense. It just forgets about the demons. At the end of this thing, you don't know what the hell's going on or how this logically fits together. And the movie just kind of hand waves all this away like, oh, don't worry about it. It's going to be so epic. You'll see these angels fighting. And that's pretty pathetic too. It's just like a really boring action scene with two people fighting each other, and the angel wings are on one guy. That's the only thing that makes this somehow you know, biblical. One guy has angel wings. It's completely stupid otherwise because they're fighting each other with pistols and whatnot. Really bad. Archangel Gabriel, by the way, has a scepter that's got some kind of motorized device in it. It's like a mace slash scepter of some kind of steel, and he can, you know, hit you with it and splatter you with it, right? Well, it also has some kind of trick on the handle where he can twist the handle, and there's a motor inside where these spinning rings of, you know, spinning blades are at the end of the mace, and I guess they'll do more damage to you when he hits you with it. It's really weird. It's like a video game. It's got video game mechanics going on that also the movie doesn't try to explain any of it. Complete stupidity on top of the boredom. 5 stars. Fun movie. Paul Bettany is very underrated. No, I disagree. Not 5 stars. Paul Bettany is not underrated. He's not overrated either. He's just kind of forgettable in a lot of things. And it's not a fun movie. It's just flat out boring. Boring. There's no part of this that's fun whatsoever. Boring. 2.5 stars, August 20th of 2019. I'm not sure if this is a ripoff of Terminator or not. In any case, it has some decent ideas that work. Just something about Lucas Black's character that is very uninspired. Well, yeah, it does have the thing about going after the pregnant mom like the Terminator, but other than that, there's no similarity here. And she's a waitress, okay, but that's the only similarity. Lucas Black, I already mentioned that he just plays this dumb hick character with one expression on his face, and he plays that in almost everything I've seen him in. I forgot he existed until I watched this again, and I think if it wasn't for his reappearance in the latest Fast and Furious 7 and whatnot, because there's a lot of characters that needed to appear there, he would have already been forgotten totally. He really just is unlikable. Just his face and the expression on it wants me to just punch him in the face. And he's very stupid in this. The character he plays is called Jeep. Yeah, that's his name. Dennis Quaid is the father. The son, his name is Jeep. And just the fact that Dennis Quaid named his kid Jeep and he's as dumb as a Jeep, I just wanted to punch him in the face, reach through the screen and punch this dummy in his face. So that's what I think about Lucas Black's acting. 1 star, July 24th. It started off as a good, bad movie, but then it got a lot worse. Yeah, it kind of teased you at the beginning like it could be a movie that you would laugh out loud, like when Grandma Demon, she climbed on the ceiling like Spider-Man. It started to go in that direction where I thought, oh, wow, it's going to be one of these that I'm going to be able to start laughing at. But no, it just got really boring. There wasn't anything there to laugh at or make fun of it beyond that one scene, perhaps. Just really boring. 5 stars, June 11th. I personally loved this movie. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. Rotten Tomatoes says Legion suffers from a curiously languid pace, confused plot, and an excess of dialogue. I strongly disagree. The plot is actually pretty forward. On the day of the 23rd of December, God created a man made both of heaven and earth because he saw purpose of mankind. Okay, this person's reading a whole lot of Bible stuff into this. Yes, it's got biblical stuff in it. Trust me, there's no big sweeping Bible story to be found here. People are just reading that from outside of it, because in the movie it doesn't tell you hardly anything about any of this. Yeah, it takes place on the 23rd of December, and that reminds me of something. In this movie, not only do you have long stretches of boring dialogue that go nowhere, but you also have completely boring, long scenes in which the camera shows you, faded and old Christmas lights kind of blowing in the dusty wind against the sides of trailers and aluminum siding. And it more than once focuses on the Christmas lights blowing against the dirty aluminum siding outside. Like this is supposed to be scary. It puts scary music and ominous music to it and shows you this kind of stuff for long periods of time where the camera just pans over this kind of boring junk. Like you're panning over like some trailer park slowly in the dark, and it's just showing you this boring trailer park at night, which doesn't look a whole lot threatening, but then there's all this ominous music playing at the same time, and it's just to waste the time, to pad out the running time. Completely stupid. 2 stars. It had the potential to be a classic, but enter Lucas Black. His dull and unpolished performance is rare for a seasoned actor, but nobody yokels like him. However, he was not the only culprit. Lazy screenwriting and directing plagued the film like God's wrath. Even Charles Dutton was helpless against this masterpiece. I also didn't appreciate the one-dimensional and stereotypical portrayal of the only 2 black people in the film. It's either the thugged-out gangster, baby daddy black man, or the old magic bagger Vance. Yeah, exactly, black stereotypes, and they weren't even used for anything. They're just there to be there. They don't contribute anything. You could put these stereotype characters in there if they gave them film, humor, or they gave the film something memorable, but they don't. They're just there to like be boring and take up more screen time. And another thing, speaking of taking up screen time, is a lot of illogic. Not only do the characters talk to each other about a lot of things that we don't care about, obviously in an effort to inform the audience of the deeper story going on here, it fails. It's completely boring, and the dialogue is very contrived and unnatural. And at one point, There's actually a minute or two of time in the film wasted in which Tyrese Gibson needs to come in and tell the pregnant lady that he needs her help out in the, she's in a back office on the phone. He needs her help out in the main area of the diner out front, just for the purpose of tuning a radio for him. Apparently, Tyrese Gibson didn't know how to operate the tuning dial on an old AM/FM portable radio, so he needed to come find her to bring her out to the front for her to do the tuning on the tuning dial for him. That's how stupid this is, and how there's stuff like that in this film for no point, just to waste running time. It's obvious just to pad the running time and to get characters into certain positions at the right time. Completely stupid. Yeah, I'm so sure that even if Tyrese Gibson was a stereotypical black thug, no, they're just too dumb to operate the tuning knob on a radio. Please. Let's move on. 1 star. What if Terminator is a guardian angel and people being possessed and turn it into a bad movie? Not a good idea. I'm going to kind of pretend like I know what that reviewer's saying. I agree on the 1 star. What if it was like a Terminator type thing, but with an angel from heaven? That almost makes this movie sound so much better than it is. It's only like the most crude, half-assed kind of, really put a lot of effort into it as a viewer to try to find that in this movie. That dumb idea sounds so much better than what you actually get. Boredom is just the thing here. Boredom is the actual sin against God that happened in this movie. Not the killings, not the dumb effects, not the dusty light bulb scenes we saw over and over again. No, it's basically just the boredom is the #1 crime that was committed. And if God would have been offended by anything in this movie, I think he would have been offended just of all the boredom. Just the boredom. 5 stars. I really liked it. The writing is believable and the concept is scary as hell. I would enjoy a sequel. Wow, it's like they're watching a totally different movie. I don't believe it at all. 5 stars. Come on, Demon Granny and ice cream. What's not to like? Yeah, aside from the demon granny crawling on the ceiling, there's just one other thing, also obviously made to put in the trailer. An ice cream truck drives up with the music blaring, with its ice cream, stereotypical ice cream music playing from it. It must have also driven out to the desert from Los Angeles, and it shows up, and a guy in an ice cream truck man uniform gets out, and he's tall and skinny and weird looking, and he stretches himself out kind of like the Stretch in Fantastic Four, and stretches himself out into a stretchy demon, and then they just light him up with machine guns from the roof, and that's the end of him. And yeah, that's just so exciting. Again, that was, I guess, put in there just to have something to put in the theatrical trailer. There was no point to it in the movie. It was dumb and boring. 5 stars. Everyone wants a clean and streamlined story with facts and things that make sense. Really? Okay. But since we as humans know nothing of how, if it ever did, the apocalypses would happen, knowing what we do about God and heaven in the Bible, yes, I believe this is one of the many possibilities, something like it. It's played in a way that, say, heaven and earth has a set of rules, guidelines, and safety. God is giving the human race a chance of redemption. Had they failed, then everyone would have died, the end of it all. This rambling, grammatically ridiculous review, it's another Bible tard. Sorry, I'm going to use that word. I guess there are Bible tards trying to read a lot into this thing. There's nothing about what this person just kind of wrote there that makes any sense in this movie. Sorry, it's not all that. 5 stars. You're just living in an alternate world, and you're reading this as some kind of gigantic Bible allegory. The movie doesn't even explain anything logically. It could have done that. This could have been some kind of biblical story, but it's not, because the movie expects you to fill that all in from, I guess, what it thinks you've read from the Bible. Nothing in this movie makes any sense, not even in a Bible sort of way. 5 stars. Whatever, not English. Half a star, December 29th, 2018. I was shocked when I was able to recognize the majority of the cast, and the intriguing storyline of having angels as the enemy had me crossing my fingers that my gut feeling was wrong about this movie. I love when a movie opens up the possibility of a sequel in the remaining 10 minutes prior to even finishing the current story. Said no one ever, written in 2010. Yeah, I guess they're saying the way the movie ended, it ends with the angels kind of agreeing to disagree, and they let basically the angels can't really kill each other. It's shown they can just send each other back to heaven, and then they can come back again in physical form, I guess. And so they just kind of step out of the way, and uh, Lucas Black's character and the pregnant mom, she's given birth to the child, and they just kind of drive off in an old vehicle, and the vehicle's stockpiled with all these weapons, and it kind of drives off down the highway in a way that kind of suggests they're going to have some further adventure somewhere. It's completely stupid. There's nothing climactic about it. I didn't take that as it was promising a sequel. I just took that as the director didn't know what he was doing, and so he just chose to end it that way, where they drove off into the desert. No, there's no sequel, please. People are reading that into it, and it's like they're watching a different movie. They somehow find something redeemable enough that they need to see more. I'm sorry, but they're just living on another planet. 1 star, December 5th of 2018. Dumb, dull, and terribly paced, Legion suffers from a poorly written script, an awful pace, and truly cringe-worthy moments. Yeah, exactly. 1/2 star, just a bunch of dittos. 5 stars, it was comical and to a point thrilling. I give it a thumbs up. Thrilling? Sorry, the thrilling went away in the first 5 minutes of this film. 3 stars, May of 2018. I loved the action and dialogue. I love angels and archangels, and they are badass in this picture, which is fun. For Christian Jewish types, it is fun action and has dark humor too. There's very little of actual angels in this. I mean, I guess if you just put CGI wings on a character and he talks in kind of cryptic, boring ways, with a lot of standing around looking at other people, then that's like angel type action. No, this is just dumb. Paul Bettany is like no angel. He doesn't even have wings. He's just like using guns, fighting possessed people with gunfire. It's completely stupid. There's no point to this. There's no angel action going on. 2 stars. I was so hyped for that demonic ice cream man from watching the trailers. Then, spoiler alert, just as soon as he arrived, he died. What the actual... Such a waste. That's all. Yeah, everything in this movie that was slightly cool or might be interesting or funny or something, it was all just put in there to make a trailer, and it's obvious, and then the rest of it is just filler to waste your time. Once they got you into that theater, they could just waste your time for another hour and 40 minutes. The trailer was just complete. It was a complete scam, a scheme and a scam, as it were. That's what it was. 1 star, April 12th, 2018. Legion's lame, ridiculous heaven versus humanity premise is just as bad as the film's terribly cheap poster of Bettany shirtless with wings, holding a knife and an automatic pistol. Yeah, think of how stupid that is. It's just made for a movie poster, made for a trailer, and that's it. That's it, guys. If you thought there was more to this movie than the trailer and the poster that you saw, you were deceived. And if you had seen this in the theater, man, I sympathize with you, because you would have been very angry paying money to see this thing. I wouldn't even pay money to see this from Redbox. I'd feel mad. 2 stars, April 9th, 2018. That was okay, completely predictable. I love Paul Bettany and Adrian Palicki, but I feel they were not at their best here, and I don't think it's their fault. I've seen every Supernatural episode. I've watched both Constantine, the movie, and the series, also read a few comics. I would probably watch it again if there's nothing else on TV, but that's it. Well, this reviewer brings up something. Maybe this was designed to appeal to people that enjoy Supernatural, the TV show, and to people that like Constantine and the comic and the movie. That could be, because I found the movie Constantine to bore me. I know it's not rotten, that's why I haven't done a rotten review on it. But Constantine, you know, the movie with, I believe it was, you know, the guy from The Matrix. Why do I forget names like this? I'm just killing myself here. Anyway, Constantine, I found it very boring. And I don't know why people think it's a thing, but they do, apparently, according to the audience score. Supernatural, I like. Supernatural, I watched like probably 6 or 7 seasons of it before I kind of got bored with it. I know it's still a thing, even in 2019. I know It's still a show that's on WB or CW or whatever it is now. But I got bored with it a long time ago. But I'm not going to say it's rotten. Uh, yeah, this was designed in a trailer-esque and a poster way to appeal to those fan bases, and man, they just got suckered into this if they bought this, if they paid to see this in the theater. 5 stars. Love this movie. Don't know why it had such horrible ratings. I don't believe you. And yes, I finally remembered that it's Keanu Reeves in Constantine. That's showing that, my mind is tired just going through this. And I'll say it again. I think Constantine with Keanu Reeves is boring largely. But I'm not going to do a rotten review because apparently the audience scores say it's not rotten, so okay, but let's move on. 3.5 stars. I found this not bad for a supernatural end of the world type thing, and Paul Bettany is always good. There's no end of the world going on here. It's just completely a phony, cheapest way to show that. Nothing special, very little supernatural beyond a few elements they put in to make a trailer. Paul Bettany is, yeah, he's an actor, he's a good actor, but in other movies as well as this, he's largely just forgettable. 4.5 stars. Good action movie. Grandma on the Ceiling. Bettany, Quaid. Bringing up Quaid. Quaid's in so many terrible, rotten films. I don't know why. He's not a bad actor in this. He's just kind of a little bit on the weird side, but nothing memorable either. He's just there. He's just there. 2 stars. A few solid special effects and some good acting are pretty much all this film has to offer, except for one of my favorite scenes in all of movie history, the scene with the granny. All them little babies are gonna burn is probably my favorite line ever. I genuinely can't tell if they were trying to make a funny scene or a scary one. Well, I recognize it might be the same old actress. The old lady that plays Granny in this that says all the babies are going to burn, that might be the same old lady that's on the subway car in Captain Marvel that gets punched by Captain Marvel. It looks like almost the same woman or the same actress. Maybe she's been in a lot of other weird movies, small scenes. In any case, she is probably the most memorable highlight of this film, but it's such a short segment. If the rest of the film had been like that one scene with the old granny and, her character, then this might have been something, but there was so little of that, just enough to put in a trailer, unfortunately. 3 stars. Remembering this movie from high school when it came out, I remembered how I wanted to see. 7 years later, I finally got around to it. Definitely a cast of respectable and familiar faces with a end-of-the-world plot that is not your normal, the dead have risen. My one drawback is they never discuss why Charlie's unborn child is the hope for all of humanity. Alright flick that definitely brought back some unrelated nostalgia. Yeah, they don't explain anything. You're just supposed to assume that there's some kind of Messiah character, baby that's, she's God in her womb. But that's all assumption because the movie doesn't actually tell you that. You just know that all these supernatural forces want to... you don't know if they want to kill her or abduct the kid or take the kid because they kind of do both things. Even the demons don't seem in a hurry. Even when they're able to easily kill her and the baby, they don't seem to be in a hurry to do that. That's one thing. Again, it's another thing in this movie that just logically fails. The movie doesn't explain enough. And the characters don't bother asking any questions either. That's the other off-putting thing. In the real world, people ask questions even in stressful situations, but the characters in this diner, they just accept the most, very surface-level explanation from Paul Bettany, and everything's okay. They don't ever question anything at all. Not one question. It's completely stupid. 5 stars. One of my absolute favorite movies. Funny, interesting, and not boring. I would watch again and again and again. I just don't believe you. That's a review from August 2017. I don't believe you or a thing you're writing. 2.5 stars. A film that had a good idea in ways but fell into that predictable plot of the end of the world and this unborn baby can save the day. Yawn. It has so many plot holes I lost interest at times. It had some okay action scenes, but that's all it had going for it. It had quite a strong cast, but we never care what happens to them. Predictable, lazy at times. If the film's execution was better, it could have been something great. Yeah, but not even 2.5 stars. 1 star maximum. Giving this thing the benefit of the doubt in every way. This is only 1 star. 4 stars. Wow. I enjoyed it. It was entertaining like horror movies were when I was a lad. Paul Bettany brings a lot to the table. If he'd half-assed his role, this wouldn't be watchable. Some top-shelf creative, scary concepts and excellent use of one location and low budget. A cult classic in my book. No, sorry. Paul Bettany doesn't perform badly, but he's not enough to save this film. This movie doesn't have anything weird enough or funny enough or offensive enough to become a cult classic. It's completely forgettable, and the only offensive part is if you paid money in any regard to see this, you would be very much offended. It's never going to be a cult classic. Never, ever. And I do have a list. I compiled a short list of things in case nobody brings this up in the audience reviews, so I can just pound a few more nails into the coffin of this thing. I talked about characters, how they just go on, boring us with exposition-type dialogue. The dunce character played by Lucas Black, Jeep, you want to punch him in the face. Let's see. Yeah, they gave up on all the special effects at one point and just had like biker gang extras come at us. Yeah, oh, here's one. Yeah, this newborn, the mom gives birth to her baby and in the diner, and it's well known how a mom is, the focus of a mother right a few minutes after she's given birth to her baby is on the baby. They want to see the baby, they want to hold the baby, etc. This woman is either supposed to be the most irredeemable mother, careless and evil and just an empty shell of a person, or she's just written really badly, because as soon as her baby is born, from the time it's born, another character that has nothing to do with the baby kind of carries the baby off into another room. Paul Bettany says, let the mother rest. And then the mother doesn't look like she had a baby or she needs any rest. She's just going to sit around and talk to other characters about different things, not about the baby. She doesn't give a crap about the baby, doesn't want to see the baby. It's like as soon as the baby was taken into the next room, out of sight, out of mind, right? And yet, she's not supposed to be this evil, empty character. It's just the script writing is so bad that whoever wrote this knows nothing about mothers or babies. They just thought it was cool that, she had a baby, and then she spent the next 10 minutes not caring where it was or who it was with, or even that she had just had a baby. It's like she doesn't even remember she just had a baby. Really bad script. Script is so bad, they should be ashamed of themselves, truly. What's left here? Yeah, the long, dumb ending. I think I've mentioned just about everything on this list. There's a lot of overly cryptic explanation from Paul Bettany when, one or two characters do happen to ask him anything, and they just make it cryptic, I think, not because it's supposed to be tension for the story or mystery, but the writers and directors just didn't have the budget to do anything with the film, so they didn't want any questions to come up or be asked or be answered. It's really bad. Low budget. You have no idea how low budget this is until you actually watch this and give it two thoughts. It's offensively low budget. It really offends me that somebody would pass this off as a movie that you're supposed to pay money for in the movie theater. So 19% on the tomato meter, 31% on the audience score. I think the reason that it has over 300,000 user ratings is because it's actually pushed on you on Netflix. Like when you boot up Netflix, I've watched this thing get pushed on me no matter what I search for, no matter what type of film I search for. This movie shows up within a few lines of me scrolling down through possible search or matches on that search. I don't care if you put in you're looking for a romantic comedy with John Cusack and whoever else, Catherine Zeta-Jones. It doesn't matter. Look for anything that has nothing to do with this, and this movie pops up after you scroll down a little bit. I don't know why. It's like I said before, Netflix is trying to push this on people. Maybe this is some sort of experiment, or maybe there's some weird Bible tard working at Netflix that wants this to be seen as something more than it really is. I don't know. It's just a conspiracy theory that popped out of the top of my head. But in any case, that's my opinion. And with all those 300,000 user ratings, it still can't hit higher than 31%. And I'm surprised that it's that high. I think it would be more fair if this was like an 11% on the audience score, because just giving us enough for a small theatrical trailer, I'm sorry, but that doesn't, make up for the other hour and 40 minutes on the running time. So I find this completely offensively bad, and I hope that you don't waste your time on it. And I'm going to see you on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.